Howdy folks, how you going?
Yeah, Mills poll has found that 65% of New Zealanders don't think that the school lunch program is working. Is that it?
Well, if they're prepared to pay for it, that's another story. But actually, we're trying to balance a budget, and that involves doing things efficiently and effectively, and we are. Furthermore, I'm very confident that as we solve problems, which we've got a track record of consistently doing, people's perception will improve.
60% of New Zealanders want you to revert it back to the old program, will you?
Well, I'd love to see the question that was asked. Did they say this will cost $170 million, which means giving up other things? They're welcome to ask that question. However, what we have to do...
to communicate that thing?
Well, that's what I'm doing right now. If you keep asking me questions, I'll keep communicating.
There's been some Erica Stanford this morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, what was your conversation like? What did you talk about?
Oh, all sorts of things, mainly education, but it was a fantastic meeting, as we always have.
What problems with the school lunch program did you discuss?
We discussed a whole range of issues around the school lunch program and how it's getting better and what our plan to do that is.
Deloitte told us that they found out on Thursday that Libelle was in a lot of trouble and they were appointed as the liquidators yesterday. When did you first find out that they were in that trouble? Did you get a notification on Thursday as well?
Well, no, when Deloitte found out, because they were appointed as the liquidator, that's clearly for them, when they understood that there was a problem. We've been aware for some time that Libelle is facing issues, and we've been working through to a resolution, which I think we've nearly got to.
When did you find out they were going to be liquidated?
Well, again, I don't want to give an exact time off the cuff.
Was it yesterday or before?
No, it was certainly before yesterday.
There's been some reporting from Business Desk that the cost per meal has had to increase substantially since you started. Can you confirm this?
No, well, that's not true.
It's not true?
No.
So the price point is still the same from when you launched the product?
Yeah, absolutely. There's been no renegotiation or change of the contract. I thought Business Desk had a reputation for getting stuff right, but not in this instance.
Why had you not told Erica Stanford that Libelle was getting liquidated if you knew she didn't know yesterday?
Well, again, my duty is to do the job that ultimately is given to me by the Prime Minister in this incident. I've been keeping him and the Cabinet updated.
But she didn't know.
Well, once again, we could spend all our time having meetings, or we could solve problems. I think the public want us to solve problems.
Do you respect her as Education Minister?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, we're two MPs who came into Parliament around the same time, with similar age, with similar outlook. We're both working in education, and I think we work together really well together, and I think our respect is mutual.
Did she not give her a heads up about that then, if you knew?
Well, again, because there's a big difference between liking, respecting and admiring someone and giving them a live update of everything that's happening in your particular responsibilities.
There's been some reporting about some schools feeding the school lunches to pigs because the kids didn't like the flavour. I mean, what do you make of the teachers and the principals in this situation? Do you think this is a wise use of money?
Well, I've also had principals get in touch with me and say, you know, we really go out of our way to model to the children that this is food which is being given to us and that we're grateful for, and that's a good attitude to take in life. Maybe there's other principals that are giving a different message. That's up to them.
So why does your winning trade Sorry, can I ask about your adversary yesterday of the Boy Scout preparedness? Was that in terms of bringing in benefit to do some of those school lunches? And if so, was that $4.50 Business Desk figure incorrect?
Well, once again, my reference to preparing for the worst and hoping for the best is what Boy Scouts do in all sorts of circumstances. No, it was not a reference to a particular contract, which is not between us, but actually between Compass and presumably Pitapit.
Why does your contract allow it was almost criminal that school lunches were being fed to pigs? Yeah, your school lunches are literally being fed to pigs. Is that a bit ironic?
No, it's a good attempt at gotcha journalism for which you're becoming famous, or rather infamous, but I just make the point that that was a criticism of whether or not the policy should go ahead. The policy is now going ahead, and we're achieving wastage and surplus levels comparable to what we had before. Difference is we're doing it for half the price. For me, that's a big improvement.
The journalist asking you about your comments you previously made as gotcha journalism, was it?
Yeah, pretty much, because they're made in a totally different context, and I'm a little bit worried that you'll try and report them as if they weren't.
Why does the contract pump them?
Education's obviously putting in requirements on Compass to give them daily updates and feedback and things like that. At what point would you expect a breach notice to be filed if Compass aren't delivering?
Yeah, so originally we said that we'd do that management of expectations starting in term 2. In actual fact, we've decided that we're going to bring that forward due to some of the issues that we have. In terms of when a breach notice would be issued, that would depend on the specific performance and the issues with the contract. Now, if I start sort of making those decisions from here in a media scrum, then that undermines the process of the contract.
When was the decision made to bring it forward from June 2?
Look, I couldn't give you an exact day. I think it was last week.
What exactly is it?
What was the catalyst? Specific catalyst?
Oh,
for bringing it?
the catalyst was some of the performance issues that have been well canvassed.
The burning of the child.
It's good that you're now saying child rather than children, because it was just one. And yes,
Others
that
have
was
been
one of
steam
the
burned
issues.
as well. That one child got a secondary burn, but there have been
Well,
other
no, they
children
weren't. They
who
weren't.
have
They
been
were.
burned by
Well,
steam
no,
by
there weren't. There was nobody who was, for example, admitted to A&E. There was some complaints that it was a bit hot. That's different from being burned. Yes.
Could you just explain what has actually been
So the performance management regime where they can be checked against and potentially sanctioned, we had said earlier, look, we'll give it term one. We recognise that you guys have got to get up and running. That's now been brought forward.
Why are you describing everyone as fixated on school lunches as if it's a bad thing? Shouldn't you be fixated on solving these problems?
Well, that's exactly what I'm doing every day. As I've mentioned many times, we've managed to start off with some problems with on-time delivery. Now we're getting basically 100%. Yesterday 99.96% on-time delivery in full. We've had some issues around performance. We're now fixing those too. So if you want to talk about who's fixated on solving the problems, that's me. I just make the point that some people are fixated on the problems rather than the fact they're being fixed, is all I'd say.
Just on the backup.
Sorry, one at a time. Okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
We spoke to a principal yesterday who was given a promise by you that there would be no more plastic containers used. The very next day, plastic containers were used.
Yeah, they've made that promise, I don't believe. Oh, sorry, they've claimed I made that promise. I don't believe I did. So.
Just on the
sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. The good that says we're close to the pigs, do you think that they should stop having lunches being sent to them?
No, I don't think that at all.
Just on the Pitapit's backup, can you confirm that that is indeed the case? That there is a provision in the contract that Pitapit would be the backup deliverer if the schools aren't delivered?
Well, not in the. I mean, you got to remember the contract is between the government, specifically the Ministry of Education, and Compass. Compass then have backups and alternatives for their business continuity, but that's actually a matter between us and them. So I think possibly, I think it was you, Anna, who raised the question about the price changing. It's quite possible that they're choosing to pay someone else more than we contracted, but they're not paying more than we are.
Why did the contract with Compass include subcontracting clauses with Libelle when Libelle's providing about half the meals? Wouldn't it be easier to have a direct relationship with them?
Well, I'm sure you could argue about either way, couldn't you? But it's simpler for us to have one line of accountability, one contract, one price, and let them manage the complexity of other relationships, I would have thought.
But at this stage, I mean, it's clear that there are problems that have developed through that relationship between those, and you're, clearly frustrated with having to deal directly with Compass instead of being able to get your hands in with Libelle. So, why not allow for that direct relationship in the first place if they're providing about half?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting hypothetical, but have a look at the outcome. The outcome is that there's been a problem with Libelle. That problem's been resolved. Yesterday they went into liquidation and we delivered 99.96% of meals on time. So if people want to talk about the outcome and should we structure it differently, actually the way we've structured it has allowed a really good outcome.
Can I just ask you about that performance management stuff? I just couldn't quite hear.
Sorry, I understand that.
So when you were talking about exactly what's brought forward, was that in terms of like the specific evaluations of the performance?
Yeah. So look, they were going to take an attitude, look, we'll come back to you in term two, you guys just get it sorted out. Clearly, because there's been a couple of issues there, we've brought that forward as one of the precautions we've taken.
And when do you expect for to find out exactly how that's going to get an evaluation report or something like that?
Well, again, that's just something that is happening all the time. So I don't want to set a date that a big thing's going to happen. They talk continuously. They'll get information as it happens.
Mean, like, for example, it comes back in like a couple of weeks, and you look at that and you say that's good or that's not good enough. Is that what happens?
Well, yeah. I mean, and then potentially, you get into penalising these guys. You can do that. But our number one thing today is just making sure that we get the meals there today. Our number one thing tomorrow will be the same, all the while working through the quality issues we've had in the meantime.
And so if you're getting continuous feedback on how that's going, whether they're meeting the contract requirements, then whose decision is it? Is it the Ministry of Education's, yours? How does it work? And what's the threshold for deciding that the contract is or isn't being met?
Beg your pardon? So, you have to look at the contract, but there's a whole range of criteria that they have to meet to be performing. I'm sure you probably looked at it too. And then you basically got to decide, in any contractual relationship, if you go and whack someone and punish them, then sometimes you actually end up doing more harm than good. So you've got to maintain the relationship while also incentivising the performance.
And so how are you incentivising that performance?
Well, ultimately you could start losing money if you don't perform.
Have you had those discussions with them?
Well, I haven't.
As the Ministry of Education?
I'm very sure they have, yes.
And do you know if they've given them a certain amount of time or deadline to fix what's going on?
Well, again, I've said I think we're going to have this right by the start of term 2 and probably a lot earlier than that. In terms of what exactly their discussions are day to day, I'm not always party to the discussions between ministry officials and the contractor, but I'm really happy with the way they're managing it, and I think that we'll see improvement over the next few weeks.
And as a minister, obviously, you can set expectations for the ministry. Have you done that? Have you given the ministry a deadline that they're able to
and look, I just say I think that they're doing a really good job at the ministry. I've been impressed with their professionalism in dealing with this, but what you've got to appreciate is we've faced some practical problems that it's not really worth saying fix it by tomorrow or fix it by this time next week, because some things were out of their control. I think those factors that were out of their control are now coming back into their control, and we can't go into a lot of the reasons why that is, but in the fullness of time, as I've been saying, the details will come out. And I think people will see that we've acted really well.
And not necessarily fixing something tomorrow or whatever, but there's a stipulation in the contract for that 2 week. If there was a breach notice issued, then they have 2 weeks to essentially fix something. Otherwise, the ministry could step in. I'm just trying to figure out at what point do you make that type of decision?
Well, again, the question is, and I always look at things, are people doing their best and can they do better? I think the reason that we've had some problems are really well understood, and they will become more publicly known as time goes on. They can't at the moment because we've still got a sensitive situation that has been widely reported. But when that happens, I think people will see that that there's no point whipping the horse when it's already running at full speed. On the other hand, if you want people to improve, sometimes you've got to offer some incentives.
But if they're trying really hard and they're still not getting it right, if there are issues around food safety or safety of a child or children, at what point do you say actually the health and the well-being of these kids is more important and you move the contract somewhere else?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we did deal with that problem. As far as the overheating goes, we dealt with that problem. That's been fixed. As far as what happens next, there'll be better improvements to come in the next few days.
So you're fully confident that even though Compass is trying really hard to do the right thing and its subcontractors, that they are still able to try harder and fix these problems, and you even though this has been going on for weeks now, you don't feel like taking that contract away from them would be the right thing?
No, I don't, because I believe that the problems can be fixed. I believe they are being fixed. I think taking away the contract right now is probably the worst thing we could do. We've got 100% delivery yesterday. We've got a really good track record of solving problems. There's a few more that we're in the process of solving right now. It'd be crazy to throw the baby out with the bathwater at that point.
Explored other potential options if things can't be fixed, say by term 2?
We always keep our options open, and we've got other options.
Are there other providers or companies in New Zealand that have the potential to deliver the school lunch program, or do you have one option?
Yeah, well, look, the other government did it with 156 providers, so there's always other ways. They just tend to cost a lot more. The one thing that is really important is if you do it at scale, then you get more productivity, you get the same or better product at a much lower price, and that's important.
Is there any other provider that could do it at scale, like Compass is still?
Well, when we went out and we did an RFP and we did the tendering process, there were quite a few different options, whether or not, but I think we actually got a really good deal. what's gone wrong has been with the implementation of that deal, but those implementation problems are being fixed.
Is there any merit in investigating whether Compass or the collective keeps the contract for larger areas, metropolitan areas, and then putting it back to localised?
I've just noticed it's 2:02, but I think I got the gist of your question. Yeah, look, we'd always keep options like that on the table, but right now our strategy is we've got a contract. It's been shown it can work. Where there's been problems, we've overcome them. There has been some problems recently. We feel that we're on the cusp of dealing with those. I can't go into a lot of reasons why that is, but in the fullness of time, I think people will see that we've actually acted very well throughout, given the circumstances we've
Have you
faced.
fixed them or are you on the cusp of fixing them?
Well, I think it's happening almost as we speak. Thank you very much. Cheers.